Before Jayden Daniels and the Commanders make it to the conference championship, they had years of losses, with their last deep playoff run in 1991. So how did Kirk Cousins and the Redskins become Jayden Daniels and the Commanders? This is Timeline. So the Redskins actually had a generational Heisman-winning quarterback before in 2012 after drafting Robert Griffin III, who had a historic rookie year, breaking the rookie quarterback record for passer rating and the highest touchdown-to-interception ratio, before a devastating knee injury in the playoffs completely derailed his career. After this injury, Griffin couldn't replicate his rookie year, and the Redskins missed the playoffs in 2013 and 2014, leading to a major restructuring for the Redskins coming into 2015. Firstly, they made the decision to bench RG3 and instead start their young quarterback Kirk Cousins instead. This decision was controversial at first, but it turned out to be great, as Cousins found his rhythm mid-season, leading Washington to huge victories, including the largest comeback in Redskins history against the Bucs, where the legendary "Cousins, you like that" cry came from, guiding Washington to a 9-7 record and an NFC East title.
You like that? You like that?
And in the playoffs, they got absolutely dominated by the Packers, but still Cousins emerged as a solid starter, and the future looked very bright for this new Redskins team.
And Lacey to finish it up, 2-yarder up the middle. Green Bay, its highest point total since week 3 when it put up 38.
So with Kirk Cousins showing promise in 2015, Washington doubled down on his quarterback by placing the franchise tag on him for 2016. And to support him, the team focused on adding depth to their receiving core, drafting Josh Doctson in the first round and relying on the steady production of Pierre Garçon and Deshaun Jackson. Defensively, the Redskins struggled with inconsistency last year, especially in pass coverage. And so to address this, the Redskins made a splash in free agency by signing all-pro cornerback Josh Norman. However, the defensive line still remained a glaring weakness, with only minor additions like veteran Ziggy Hood. And the Redskins started the season unevenly, but showed some flashes of offensive firepower behind Cousins, who threw for over 4,900 yards. Despite these performances, Washington's lack of consistent ground game and defensive lapses hurt their playoff chances, as they finished with an 8-7-1 record, barely missing the postseason.
Batter for Cousins, down the field, it is caught by Crowder for the touchdown! Jamison Crowder!
So after barely missing the playoffs, the Redskins were unsure about what to do with Cousins, opting to place him under a franchise tag for the second straight year despite Cousins' wishes, who wanted a longer-term deal. On top of that, they lost their two best receivers in Pierre Garçon and Deshaun Jackson in free agency, so they brought in Terrell Pryor to fill the void. The one bright spot of this offense was the Redskins' offensive line, which was still one of the better units in the NFL. Defensively, their breakdowns in 2016 hurt the team a lot, so Washington focused on upgrading their defensive front in the draft, selecting Jonathan Allen in the first round and Ryan Anderson in the second. Allen, alongside Ryan Kerrigan and a revamped linebacker unit, was expected to help improve the pass rush. And the Redskins began the season with high expectations, but struggled to meet them. Pryor and other new additions failed to deliver on offense, and injuries to Jordan Reed and others disrupted any rhythm. On defense, the rookie Allen showed some flashes of potential before being sidelined with an injury, leaving the entire unit vulnerable, finishing 7-9 and missing the playoffs for a second consecutive year.
In the direction of Mitchell and away from Peters. Cousins for deep try, looking for Pryor, and it is caught!
So coming into 2018, with Cousins leaving in free agency, the Redskins started a long history of trying to find a quarterback, firstly trading for veteran quarterback Alex Smith to provide leadership and stability. The team also added Paul Richardson to their receiving core and drafted running back Darius Geis to energize the ground game. But unfortunately, Geis suffered a preseason ACL tear, leaving veteran Adrian Peterson to fill the void. Defensively, Washington doubled down on improving its defensive front, adding Daron Payne in the first round. Paired with a healthy Jonathan Allen, Payne was expected to anchor the defensive line, while the secondary also received minor adjustments but still relied heavily on the presence of Josh Norman. The Redskins started the season strong, sitting at 6-3 and leading the NFC East, but the team's fortunes changed dramatically after Alex Smith suffered a brutal leg injury in Week 11. The backup quarterback struggled, and the team started to drop games, finishing 7-9 for a second straight year.
Thompson, 2 rushes for 27 yards, back in the hands of Peterson. How about the moves right there by Peterson, and now the power. And he's down to the...
So after Alex Smith's devastating injury, the Redskins turned to free agency and the draft to find another solution at quarterback. Case Keenum was brought in as a buffer, while Ohio State's Dwayne Haskins was selected in the first round to be the future of the franchise. Rookie receiver Terry McLaurin, a huge part of today's team, also joined and was expected to help revitalize a slowly dying passing game, while the veteran Adrian Peterson still remained the leader in the backfield. And while offensively the Redskins were still young and going through growing pains, their defense looked terrifying. Over the last few drafts, they built up a strong defensive line, nicknamed the Alabama Wall, with both Jonathan Allen and Daron Payne. On top of that, they had Ryan Kerrigan, Montez Sweat, and Josh Norman, all incredible defensive players. and expectations were high for this defense to carry the team. But the Redskins had a terrible 2019 season. Head coach Jay Gruden was fired after an 0-5 start, and interim coach Bill Callahan couldn't right the ship. Haskins showed some flashes of potential but struggled with inconsistency, while the offense as a whole lacked any firepower. Washington finished a terrible 3-13, earning the second pick in the 2020 NFL Draft.
At running back, former Eagle, his first year with the Redskins. Off the play fake, Keenum with time, goes to the end zone. McLaurin for a touchdown!
So coming into the 2020 season, the Redskins underwent major changes. First, they decided to change their name to the Washington Football Team, both because of the George Floyd protests, plus the decades of controversy given that Redskins was a slur back in the 19th and 20th century for Native Americans. But they couldn't settle on a name just yet, so they just called them the Washington Football Team. On top of that, after a disappointing 3-13 season, Washington brought in Ron Rivera as the new head coach to reset the team's culture. The quarterback situation was still uncertain, with Dwayne Haskins starting the year as quarterback one, facing pressure from the returning Alex Smith, who somehow made a miraculous comeback from a life-threatening leg injury. To improve the offense, Washington drafted Antonio Gibson in the 4th round, banking on his versatility as both a running back and receiver. Defensively, with the second pick in the draft, they selected Chase Young, a dominant pass rusher widely regarded as the best prospect of the draft. Young joined an already talented defensive line, featuring Jonathan Allen, Daron Payne, and Montez Sweat, creating a potentially elite unit. They also improved their secondary by bringing cornerback Kendall Fuller in free agency after Josh Norman left. And in the 2020 season, Washington struggled early, leading to Dwayne Haskins being benched and Kyle Allen taking over, who was soon injured too, opening the door for Alex Smith's return. And under Smith's leadership, Washington was able to find consistency, and their defense, led by Chase Young, became one of the league's best. They finished the season 7-9 and actually won the NFC East. And in the wildcard round, Alex Smith actually was forced to sit out due to lingering bone bruise issues. Backup quarterback Taylor Heineke made a heroic effort, with 300 passing yards and being the team's leading rusher, but still Washington fell to the eventual Super Bowl champion Buccaneers.
Play coverage.
They rush 4. Heineke still is flush. He's pressured. He's got to fling it. Got to have it close it down.
So Washington entered 2021 with a strong defense but a desperate need for a clear quarterback to settle the offense after Alex Smith's retirement, leading them to signing veteran Ryan Fitzpatrick to a 1-year deal, hoping his experience could provide consistency. To support him, Washington added Curtis Samuel in free agency to pair with his college roommate Terry McLaurin, and drafted offensive tackle Samuel Cosmi in the 2nd round to help improve the offensive line. Defensively, the Commanders were practically Super Bowl ready after a strong showing in 2020. They tried to further strengthen their defense. They used their 1st-round pick on linebacker Jamin Davis, hoping his athleticism would improve the weakest part of that unit. And the defensive line was still the team's strongest area and remained intact, with Chase Young expected to take another step forward in his sophomore season. But Washington's hopes for a strong season were derailed early when Ryan Fitzpatrick suffered a hip injury in Week 1, forcing Taylor Heineke back in the starting role. And while Heineke showed some flashes of potential, the offense struggled with inconsistency. Curtis Samuel dealt with injuries and the offensive line failed to meet expectations. On defense, Chase Young suffered a season-ending ACL injury, and the unit overall regressed, finishing 25th in points allowed, ending the season 7-10 and missing the playoffs.
Backfield, and now in motion. Heineke pump fakes, puts some air under it. McLaurin wide open, and it is caught.
So coming into 2022, the Washington Football Team officially announced their new name as the Commanders, bringing yet another new era. Offensively, after a shaky 2021 season, Washington made moves to solidify their quarterback position once again, trading for veteran Carson Wentz. The team believed his experience and arm strength could elevate this offense and provide more stability than Taylor Heineke could. And to give Wentz more weapons, Washington had one of their best drafts, using their 1st-round pick on wide receiver Jahan Dotson, a polished route runner who could complement Terry McLaurin, and also drafting running back Brian Robinson Jr. in the 3rd round to add depth. The offensive line also saw some changes with the departure of Brandon Scherf and the addition of Andrew Norwell to fill the gap. Defensively, the Commanders needed to improve their secondary, and to address this, the team drafted Percy Butler in the 4th round. The defensive line was still intact, with high hopes of Chase Young's return from his ACL injury, but there was still some uncertainty around his return, which put more pressure on Montez Sweat and Jonathan Allen to lead this pass rush. And the season began with optimism, but inconsistency quickly became the theme. Carson Wentz had moments of brilliance but struggled with turnovers and missed several games due to injury, making Taylor Heineke step in, providing a spark, but still the offense remained unreliable, even with incredible performances from McLaurin and Dotson. On defense, injuries continued to plague Chase Young, who returned late in the year, causing Washington to finish 8-1, narrowly missing the playoffs, but still showing some promise with young talent stepping up in key positions.
Heineke looking. Heineke. They keep the play alive again. He flips it downfield, and McLaurin.
So coming into the 2023 season, there was a major shift for the Commanders, as owner Dan Snyder finally sold the franchise to Josh Harris for a record $6 billion. When Snyder had bought the team, they were just a few years off an amazing 10-year run from 1982 to 1999, where the Redskins won 3 Super Bowls and reached the playoffs 8 out of those 10 seasons. Since then, obviously, Washington haven't been doing great under Snyder, plus he was also facing multiple lawsuits of sexual harassment and stealing money from other NFL owners. Forcing him to sell the team and end his streak is probably the worst owner in NFL history, which was a huge part in their eventual turnaround this year. On the offensive side, the story was still at quarterback. After 2 years of inconsistency, Washington decided to take a different approach by placing their faith in second-year quarterback Sam Howell. Howell had showed some flashes of potential in limited action, and the team hoped he could develop into a long-term solution. To support Howell, Washington signed veteran quarterback Jacoby Brissett as a reliable backup and mentor. The offense also saw changes along the offensive line, with the team signing Nick Gates to play center and Andrew Wiley to bolster the right tackle position. The running backs and wide receivers still remained a strength, with Antonio Gibson and Brian Robinson Jr. and Terry McLaurin and Jahan Dotson all being dynamic duos. On defense, Washington focused on adding to their secondary, which had been a liability in recent years. They used their first-round pick in quarterback Emmanuel Forbes, a ball-hawking playmaker known for his ability to create turnovers, and also selected safety Quan Martin in the second round to add versatility to the defensive backfield. And once again, the Commanders' 2023 season started with optimism, but that quickly unraveled as the team posted the worst point differential in the league with a negative 189 points, and went without a win in the division, ending with a 4-13 record. So after a disastrous season in 2023, Washington underwent massive changes, completing one of the fastest turnarounds in NFL history, starting with a new head coach Dan Quinn and an entirely revamped front office led by general manager Adam Peters. The biggest of which were former Cardinal head coach Cliff Kingsbury as offensive coordinator and former Cowboys coach Joe Witt Jr. as their defensive coordinator. Offensively, their biggest move was drafting quarterback Jayden Daniels second overall, a dual-threat Heisman-winning college star who would shatter records this season. Aside from Daniels, they also brought in Austin Eckler as a dynamic weapon in the backfield and veteran reliable pass catchers like Zach Ertz, Zacchaeus, and Noah Brown. With Cliff Kingsbury as the new offensive coordinator, the new scheme was built around Daniels' mobility and ability to stretch the field. The defense also struggled in 2023, which spurred a major personnel overhaul. Just look at the changes from 2023 to 2024. Including a mid-season acquisition of star cornerback Marshawn Lattimore, as well as signing both Frankie Louvu and Bobby Wagner to anchor the linebacker core while adding depth to the defensive front, with reinforcements Doris Armstrong, Cleveland Farrell, and Dante Fowler. On top of all these acquisitions, the new coaching scheme allowed for the remaining players' ability to be fully unlocked, with Brian Robinson Jr. and Terry McLaurin enjoying far better play call. And this 2024 season has been a crazy turnaround for Washington, as Jayden Daniels has had a historic season, ending with a 12-5 record where they've beaten the Bucs and first-seed Lions to make the conference championship. On Wednesday, I have a video coming out on how Jayden Daniels used VR and AI to get this far, so be sure to subscribe for that. But we'll see how far this incredible rebuild can take the Commanders and if they can make it all the way to the Super Bowl.